call the July 14th meeting of the Chemung County Legislature to order. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Pastor?
Here.
Mr. Manchester?
Here.
Mr. Sweet?
Here.
Mr. Brennan?
Here.
Mr. Babak?
Here.
Mr. Hyland?
Here.
Dr. Milliken?
Here.
Mrs. Woodard?
Here.
Mr. Hitchcock?
Here.
Mr. Bennett?
Here.
Mrs. Jackson? Mr. Malazzo?
Aye. Are here. Sorry.
Mr. Nato?
Here.
Mr. Strange?
Here.
Mrs. Draxler?
Here. And a motion to excuse Mrs. Jackson by Mrs. Woodard and seconded by Mr. Nato. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Motion to accept the minutes by Mr. Malazzo, seconded by Mr. Pastrick. Any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Motion to accept the communications 7-01 to 7-09 by Mr. Malazzo, seconded by Mr. Strange. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We come to the public comment section. You have 5 minutes in which to speak. Please give your name and your address, and if you are representing someone other than yourself, please state that to us. And I would like to point out we have some chairs over here to the side, so I'm going to try to get more people lined up quicker, so we don't wait for a lot of people walking back and forth. We'll start over here on this, your right-hand side, my left-hand side, front row. Come on up. Anybody else in the front row wish to speak, come on up and sit in the chairs, please.
So I'll make this short because you guys have put up a lot. Since our last visit here, I want to thank you for a couple of things. One, the DEC now has requiring that the Casella recalibrate the radiation monitors at the landfill to make sure that they're accurate. They're also going to continue to measure the radiation and leachate every 6 months indefinitely. And that's moving in the right direction. At the same time, we have some concerns about other things that are going on. We've had a lot of rain. We're going to have a lot more rain as time goes on. And that leachate and that stuff in the landfill can overflow into other areas around the landfill. So we're looking into that possibility. The July 10th, 2014, concerned health professionals in New York presented a compendium of scientific, medical, and media findings about fracking waste. And so I'm going to give this to our chair here. Basically talks about those same things that we've talked to you about, the possible medical complications of the various chemicals and radiation and other things in the material taken out for the Marcellus drilling. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug Kushan, PhD, from Elmira, Chemung County. And the compendium that was just mentioned is backed up by lots of science and research. It's a really good read. And if you were to pick one source, if you didn't have time for the many, that would be one to look over. I'd like to start my comments by sharing some facts and continue by connecting some more dots for you. The facts come from a University of Pittsburgh study first presented in October of 2012 by Zhang, Bain, and Vidic. Background radiation in nature is not more than 1 picocurie per liter, a unit of measurement. That's what we live with every day in terms of radiation. The EPA set a limit on radium in drinking water at 5 picocuries per liter. The EPA set a limit on radium in fluid discharge at 50 picocuries per liter, such as when the Elmira Water Treatment Facility discharges treated fluid into the Chemung River, where many of us get our drinking water. Why put the discharge limit at 50 units when the limit for drinking water is 5 units? Why put the limit for drinking water at 5 units when natural radiation is 1 unit? Why permit any level of radiation above background in potable water? The radium level for leachate in the dump lagoon was over 14 picocuries per liter in June 2013. That would be illegal for drinking water, but legal for discharge into the Chemung River. Tests show that the level of leachate at the dump has been increasing over a 2-year period. While 14.15 picocuries per liter is a legal discharge level, that water goes directly from the Lake Street Water Treatment Facility into the Chemung River, untested and untreated for radium. Does that make the least bit of sense to you? Now a note on the DEC. I'm going to switch gears for a second. A note on the DEC, EPA, and other regulatory agencies, because there are many misconceptions about those bodies. These agencies have 2 conflicting government mandates. 1, protect the public from harm. 2, permit or allow industrial processes that carry potential or actual harms to people and communities. When it comes to the extraction industries, there are a few cases of real protections coming from the regulatory agencies. Their primary purpose is to permit processes that harm people. So when the DEC or EPA talks about a drinking water limit for radium, it may sound to the general public as if they are being protected. But no, in reality, it is the DEC's job to limit the harm to people and communities. And I'll say that again. It is the job of the DEC and other regulatory agencies to limit or regulate harm to people and communities. I've been studying the regulatory history in the United States for about 2.5 years. So maybe some of us don't get sick because there's no radium in our water, or only a minuscule amount is consumed for a short period of time. Those of us for whom that is true are lucky, but perhaps those of us whose water is actually a radium cocktail, consumed over a longer period of time, don't make out so well. We become the regulatory agencies, that's the DEC, and the industries, that would be Casella Waste in this example, and our own county legislators, collateral damage. That is, if the legislature accepts the established regulatory limits on radium. So vote no for expansion of tonnage at the dump, which invites acceptance of more drill cuttings. Send back the drill cuttings already deposited there, and rule that no further drill cuttings or frac waste of any kind will be allowed at the dump or anywhere in Chemung County. So to connect these dots is just a simple question. How much radium do you want to allow in your children's, grandchildren's, or your next glass of water? 5 picocuries per liter? Thank you.
Please hold your applause while we're here listening to the speakers. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Finneran. I am from Greene County. I grew up in Steuben County. I am here representing the Chemung River and all the life forms on it. The last time I came here, maybe you recall in May, I mentioned having seen 6 bald eagles coming down. Some on the Susquehanna, some on the Chemung. I didn't see any this time coming down. I was disappointed, but that's what I'm expecting. I'm not expecting to see any anymore. I actually want to speak to you about another Casella site, and which is the Hakes landfill in Painted Post, which is a private Casella landfill, but it does relate to you people because the leachate from that goes to the Bath water treatment plant, which goes into the Cohocton River, which connects to the Chemung. So besides getting the leachate from this, you also get it from Bath already, so it's just going to be compounded. It was tested south of the Bath water treatment plant, tested above the water treatment plant and below the Cohocton River. And it was hot below the river for a little bit, but it was hot. They found radiation there, the testers. The radiation is not acceptable. The waste is not acceptable. The fracking is not acceptable to me, but that's beyond this point. Accepting anything from Pennsylvania, what does it behoove the people here? What does it behoove you to be accepting waste that has nothing to do with your county? How does it benefit you? Is it benefiting you some way, profit-wise? Is somebody making money? I don't know, but you should not be accepting any of this. Stop accepting more. And consider the life forms. Once again, are you going to be sitting there, as I said the last time I was here, is your grandson going to be sitting, having his grandson sitting on his lap and saying, my grandfather told me when he remembered there were bald eagles. I saw one once. Can we keep them coming back? They were gone 20 years ago. They're back. Let's keep them here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Morrison. I live on Robert Tower Road in Lowndes, and I'm a member of RFPLC. I'd like to make a comment when Mr. Cruchon said there about the DEC allowing 5, whatever they are, what call them? Make a picture, what they call them? Picometers or what they call them. They're the ones that have polluted 150 bodies of water in New York State where they don't want you to drink the water out of. They allowed this to happen. And now they want to come down the landfill and say it's okay, we had this much radiation for this much, for this long, it won't hurt anything. Yet they don't want you drinking the water of all these streams and ponds and rivers in New York State. They're the ones that regulated it. They're the ones that decide what was into that landfill down there. I got another thing I'm talking about is recycling. Dr. Robinson and myself, a couple of members of RFPLC, went to Geneva to a conference up there about landfills. You know, Tompkins County recycles 80%, over 80% of all their garbage. Onondaga County 45, Seneca's 45, and Ontario is 35. I think that's pretty good. I'd like to see the legislature adopt a plan where everything in Chemung County that can be recycled will be recycled. Barb Ekstrom, the girl that runs the program up at Tompkins County, said there are people that will buy this stuff. Why the hell throw it in the landfill if you got someone who's going to buy it and reuse it over? That's what they do. The city of San Francisco has zero waste. They recycle everything. They have no waste whatsoever. They sell everything. The people overseas, I'm talking about the Japanese, the Chinese, and all the rest of them, they're buying most of this stuff because they're saving their resources while we're throwing ours in the damn landfill. I think we ought to start this recycling program. I mean, get serious about it. I'm going to tell you something. I've been recycling since I was about 6 years old. I didn't know at the time. We lived up on Henry Hollow Road. And up in that, back in them days, people come along and threw trash all on the road. We'd go in and get all the soda bottles from Flawn Beverage and Pepsi and all that, and we'd take it down to the local store, cash them in, get bubble gum and candy. And that was recycling back then. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. So I'd like to see Chemung County adopt something like that. Thank you very much.
Third, fourth, anybody in the fourth? Come on down. Fifth aisle? Anybody in this side of this room want to speak? Go ahead.
I'm Barbara McDowell. I live next to the river on Decker East in Elmira. In 1779, Captain Daniel McDowell, who had fought with Sullivan's army, was led by his captors, the British, through the Chemung Valley. He noticed the fertile soil and the abundance of clean, clear, running water. He vowed that if he were ever freed, he'd settle in this valley, and in 1786, he indeed came back, built a log cabin on the Chemung River in what is now Loudon. He's buried in the Riverside Cemetery just east of the landfill. Not that that matters. Anyway, the house of one of his sons still stands in that community. Fast forward to the 21st century. Now, as you all know, in that town is the landfill. I'm going to try not to be redundant because so many of you have said so many important things that I don't want to repeat. Anyway, we do know the legislature is being asked to consider the plan of increasing the tonnage of the shale drill cuttings. We know about the amounts of radium that are contained there. And I'm sure all of you read the AP, Associated Press article yesterday that quoted the Health Secretary of Pennsylvania, who said, and I quote, "Don't BS the public. Their health comes first." We all concur. And we also know in that article it said the health employees of that state were admonished, quote, "not to discuss the issues. There is a terrible lack of transparency in the oil and gas industry." A vital source of our county's drinking water is from our river, and there again, that's redundant. I remember well, I imagine many of you do, what happened in Niagara County in regard to the Love Canal. Don't let it happen here. 3 generations of my family, needless to say, all younger than I, are living here. Let them continue. Stop accepting the cuttings. Remove those left in the fill for the past 3 years, and prohibit the acceptance of any more. Thank you.
Just to speak. First row on the side, second row, one down.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Art Weaver. I'm 54 years old. My wife and I have been residents of the town of Van Etten in Chemung County for 15 years now. I have MD and PhD degrees, but never practiced medicine. I opted instead to devote my early career to scientific research. 12 years ago, I left a position at Cornell to found a renewable energy company in Ithaca called Renewable Energy. The company has become very successful. 3 years ago, I founded another renewable energy company called Weaver Wind Energy. That company is on the verge of success. So I'm not just some academic with my head in the clouds. I'm a successful business person who understands the hard truths of economics. My 2 companies have created and will continue to create green jobs for Southern Tier residents. Basically, my adult life has been devoted to finding solutions to problems that people face. Problems related to health and problems related to energy. Physicians are bound by the Hippocratic Oath. First of all, do no harm. And I have found again and again that there are good solutions to the problems we face. Solutions which do no harm to people and to our communities. There are also bad solutions. In my view, the Chemung County Legislature is facing a moral dilemma in deciding whether or not to allow expansion of the Chemung County landfill to accommodate drill cuttings from frac fields in Pennsylvania. I would like you, as decision makers, to consider 2 questions. First question. In view of overwhelming scientific evidence that global warming is due to the burning of fossil fuels, is it morally acceptable to tacitly condone practices such as fracking by accepting its waste? On this question, I note that on Thursday, the World Council of Churches, representing denominations including over 500 million Christians, decided that, quote, "The committee discussed the ethical investment criteria and considered that the list of sectors in which the WCC does not invest should be extended to fossil fuels." Close quote. Second question for you. In view of the fact that fracking waste has been shown to contain hazardous chemicals and radioactive materials, as other speakers have made abundantly clear, is it morally acceptable to open Chemung County workers and residents to this hazard, even if, quote, reasonable protective measures are taken? Consider Chernobyl, Fukushima, 3 Mile Island. Even if our intentions are good, because we are not perfect and our understanding is incomplete, In time, there will be accidents. Finally, I want you to know that I do understand the economic ramifications of this decision. Like many other New York counties, Chemung County needs sources of revenue. I get that. But the county's short-term financial gain will be only that. You, we, all of us will have to live with the long-term consequences. So please ask yourselves, what might be the long-term costs? A decision in favor of expansion will, sooner or later, affect our environment and our health. And as I have argued, it is also morally wrong. Your wisdom will be judged by future Chemung County residents. I'll close with a short quote from the late poet Maya Angelou. When you know better, you do better. I urge you to consider her words. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenneth Fogarty. I'm from Chenango County, the town of Guilford, which is in New York State, several counties over. Recently, I was at my Chenango recycle station, putting my tin cans in the tin can bin and putting newspapers in the newspaper bin, etc. And the county employee came out from his room, and he had this long stick. What his job was to go and visit each bin to be sure that people who were of good intention, but they might have put the paper into the cardboard bin or the tin can into the other bin, and he was able, to the best of his ability, to correct whatever errors he saw. When I was observing that, this brought to my mind an interest of mine that has been for many years, is the study of systems. I'm a retired mathematics professor from the City University of New York. I spent 38 years teaching mathematics there. One of my interests is systems. Now, simple systems, which only have a few components, are easy to understand and to design. But once we have complex systems, and once they get large, or too large, or get to the critical mass point where it then becomes too large, the probability of error, even if the system is well designed, and even if it is guided by well-intended people, the probability is large and significant that it will eventually stumble and crash. And now, I've seen systems close up, besides those in the textbook, which are pretty much academic ventures, but then I also spent 15 years of my career as an ombudsperson of the college. And in that job, we did our best to design the college in a nice way. The employees would be tired on some days, and maybe they didn't give their best attention to every detail, so problems would crop up. And I learned about systems of that type. But I also did public service. I was chairman of a New York City Community Board for 16 years. The district had 150,000 people in it. And during that time, that came before us in the Bronx, it was part of the Bronx Legislature also, the case of the Bronx landfill. So today I decided to quickly recall some of those events and looked into my little computer. And the articles that I got go back to, and I could have gone back further, the New York Times, 1980. My eyes don't work very good. It's the late 1980s. And there the headline is, "A Bronx landfill raises concern over diseases." This is the New York Times. And this was one of the first articles that we got. And as I read through that, I asterisked certain things. The landfill is one of 332 hazardous waste sites in the state. 8 of them in New York City that are considered potentially to pose a significant threat to public health or the environment and are designed for cleanup, but no one knows exactly what is in the Bronx dump. In a trial that led to several convictions, a dispatcher for an oil refining company said that in the previous decade, hundreds of thousands of gallons of toxic waste were illegally disposed of at 5 municipal landfills, including the one at Pelham Bay. Pelham Bay sits on Long Island Sound, and it's a very beautiful place where people fish, etc. including the one in Pelham Bay. Among the materials were waste oil, sludge, solvents, and cyanide. The toxic materials have been uncovered at some other sites as well, so it seemed to be a problem that was not site-specific, but spread throughout several other regions. So I'll put that one to the side. It goes on 2 pages. Then we jump
You have
forward
1
a
minute
little.
left.
I'm sorry,
1 minute.
left. The Bronx dump poison kills kids. Now the city must pay residents. So in here we have a group of people who, the children died from early childhood leukemia. It alerted people to the problem that they, we had these dumps. Mob Connected and companies began hauling in truckloads of highly toxic chemicals. Instead of empty tuna cans and shredded bills, the Pelham dump was beginning to hold substances with names like benzene, xylene, etc. Then the State Court of Appeals. Through this period, we found the bureaucracy was very resistant to hearing the cases and very resistant to remediate. The State Court of Appeals, in a 3-2 decision, the judge agreed that it should be heard, and the judge in the case said these people are living in an area where they're being systematically poisoned by environmental contaminants. Finally, the case has been settled. The woman whose child died in 1989 at the age of 10 finally got some satisfaction out of it. It was settled, and the city had to pay for the 13 people who took the case. I believe it was $15 million. There are other lawsuits now pending, and I will end then with the comment, if I find my last comment sheet. When we study systems, Albert Einstein said, policymakers should base decisions on the world as it is, not as the world as we would like to see it. So I think there's abundant evidence that this industry is not regulatable. The bureaucracy is not there to correct the errors. The errors cannot be corrected even if they want to. So I would urge you to think very carefully and cautiously in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. While you're working your way up, is there anybody else on this side of the room that wishes to speak? Glenda.
Thank you. I'm Gudrun Scott. I live in Andover in Allegheny County, and I've been there for 40 years. And we have a similar problem as Chemung County because Casella Company is wanting to increase the Highland landfill by 50% starting in 2013. So far they haven't gotten the permit yet. They need also an air permit from the EPA, as well as they need also a permit from the DEC, and they have not gotten it yet. But we want, you here in Chemung County are helpful to help us to stop this, because this is what it needs to do. What I did, I used to be a chemistry high school teacher, and then I became a nurse, but now I'm retired. So I wanted to use as much of my capabilities to learn more as much as I could, and I wanted to share with you the one research paper that I thought was kind of helpful, and it was from the United States Geological Survey, which is a very respectable organization. And they had this graph here. Well, it helps to have it right side up. It's a fact sheet number 163. And these are not Catskills in the woods or whatever. These are the amount of radiation that is in different kinds of rocks. They took 7 different rocks. Here is the black shale right here. It starts out with basaltic rock. It goes to U.S. coal. Then this is the common shales that we see on the road every day of the year. This is granite rock. This is fly ash from the coal that is collected at the electric coal power plants. And there is black shale. And then this is phosphate rock, which is only in Florida, and it's used to make fertilizer. Now, these things are going up like this, but the measurement here is 10 times each factor. It's uranium, amount of uranium per 1,000 parts per million, okay, uranium parts per million. This is 0.1 uranium parts per million. It goes for basaltic rock. Then basaltic rock is up there. Okay, then this is 1 unit of uranium per million. This is 10 units, and this is 100 units, and this is 1,000 units. That's called logarithmic. So that's why it's going up swiftly and quickly. And you can see black shale is right up there. So don't let them tell you that they can't get any radiation out of this drill cutting, because this is not, this is 3 times as much as granite rock. And I have heard Scott Fogarty from the DEC talk about, oh yeah, you've got a granite that you want in your kitchen, on your shelf there in the kitchen. That's just like as if it's shale rock. No, it's not. This is 3 times as radioactive as that, and this is 10 times as radioactive as basaltic rock. So I thought I'd help with this, and I can submit that to you. This is fact sheet number 163 of the USGS. I have some other documents that I also researched that I think my 3 minutes up, and thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak up? Come on down, sit down. We have 4 chairs down here for the next speakers. Come on down. Okay.
Susan Moulter, town of Ithaca. I'll be very brief because I've spoken here several times before, as many people have been speaking and writing since January on this subject. I just want to tell you about some radioactivity in wastewater from a landfill in which drill cuttings are being deposited. Drill cuttings from the Marcellus Shale. It's the Meadowfield landfill near Bridgeport in West Virginia. You heard some figures earlier tonight about that 5 picocuries per liter is the standard for drinking water, but that 50 picocuries per liter is allowed as discharge. One of the speakers talked about the discharge from our local water treatment plant into the Chemung River, which of course provides drinking water for many people downstream. In this study in West Virginia, the average number of picocuries per liter of radioactivity was 250. And the spikes went as high as 2,000. Folks, we've been saying things like this since January, and we come in with different studies and different reports to remind you and impress you with the fact that the decision you're going to be making has huge implications for the health of our children and grandchildren. And I simply hope that when you do vote, it will be against expansion of the tonnage of drill cuttings in the Chemung County Landfill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Colleen Boland, and I'm a resident of the 11th District, 365 Davis Street. I'm a retired Army and Air Force. I'm also a volunteer board of director for Home for Abandoned Children in Kathmandu, Nepal. And first and foremost, I just want to say that I'm against the expansion of the Chemung County Landfill. I'm also against receiving drill cuttings from the Marcellus Shale. So that's my bottom line. The rest of it is all just me speaking, trying to speak to you. We all understand that this is a difficult issue. And I wonder, what you think, what is motivating us to come out here. I would rather be on one of our beautiful Finger Lakes right now, sipping a glass of wine. I would rather not know the things that I know and the science that I now know about fracking and drill cuttings and methane and tooling, and I don't do science. So I'm a little, I don't want to be here. And I'm sure that you don't want to hear us come in over and over again. I'm sure that you may be offended that there are people from out of the county coming in. We're trying to be helpful. We're not trying to alienate. We're not trying to insult. As we learn, and we are still learning, everyone in this country is still learning about the impacts of everything that we're talking about, drill cuttings, whatever, frac waste, we're all learning. We're here to try to help you with your decision. We're here to encourage you and empower you to be brave. There's got to be pressures put upon you to come up with an answer to this. We're trying to help you with that. So you're not alone. We're here to support you personally. We'll come every month to support you. But you should also know that throughout New York State, you're not alone. 12 counties in New York State have rejected frac waste, some for various reasons, some for whether de-icing or for putting in treatment plants or whatever. Not in a landfill, that hasn't been done yet, but we can be first at that. Because that is our issue right here in Chemung County right now, is whether we're going to allow drill cuttings that we know are harmful to human health and to our environment, and whether we're going to allow them to come in here. We obviously want that answer to be no. At the state level, in mid-May, there are 4 bills recently introduced to ban all frac waste from New York State. So it's not just, Doug Cruchon over here, Crazy Doug, we like to call him, or Mary Finneran coming down from another county. It's not just folks coming here to waste your time. We're trying to get a message across. We're trying to be helpful. And quite frankly, I'm scared. I don't want to be scared. I'm brave. I'm a retired military person. I should be very brave, but I'm not anymore. So I would encourage you to listen to the science that's brought before you. I'm not going to bring that to you because, as I said, I don't do science. So I really would encourage you to stick with us, stand with us, hear what we have to say, and implore you to please make the right decision when the vote comes up. Thank you.
Good evening. I think that the world has gone mad.
Your name?
Elizabeth Whitehouse. My name is Elizabeth Whitehouse. I think that the world has gone mad, at least our small part of the world. By most definitions, we live in paradise. Clean air, clean water, an achingly beautiful landscape filled with more wildlife than I've seen anywhere else in the world, from the tiny chipmunk to the majestic bear, from the glorious ruby-throated hummingbird to the iconic bald eagle. Surely this is worth preserving. Why would we even consider polluting our waters with, at worst, radioactive materials and at best chemical-laden sludge that sooner or later will make its way into our drinking water? Last week, I had 3 media experiences on the same day, all of them relevant to this meeting. The first was the Chemung County Chamber of Commerce newsletter. I quote, "Chemung County and the landfill operator Casella Waste Management have..." I've lost it. I'm sorry. Casella Waste Management have done a stellar job in safely handling a growing volume and variety of refuse. In seeking state approval to expand the landfill to its originally planned volume, the county has earned high marks from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for the facility's impeccable record on behalf of public health and environmental safety. Although anti-fracking activists have protested to the contrary, the Chamber applauds the landfill's performance and its expected expansion endorsement by the DEC. The second was an alternative radio segment on community rights by Paul Cienfuegos. He was talking about the community rights movement that he has launched as a timely way to bring about the dramatic changes needed to stave off climate disaster. Because, he argues, if we leave it to government, it'll be too late. What struck me most was, you do all the things that you're supposed to do. You write letters to the editor, to your legislature, you attend meetings, you speak, like I'm doing now, and they ignore you. Third, I came across the website of Finger Lakes Zero Waste. This is something I didn't know about before. But they claim that for every job in landfill management, there are up to 300 jobs in processing recyclable materials. Add to these three events the fact that I've just come from Watkins Glen, where there was a huge rally to protest Schuyler County's resolution endorsing the proposal to construct an industrial facility right on the edge of Seneca Lake. That leads to this situation. Very much for-profit corporations move into an area where they can cheaply set up a highly profitable business. They dangle dollar signs and the promise of jobs in front of local governments, who then do everything in their power to accommodate the newcomers. Meanwhile, residents of the area look at the effects of the new businesses that will have on existing jobs, on the environment, on the quality of life, health, and future investment in the area. In both Schuyler County and Chemung County, there are serious, well-founded concerns about the environmental impact. In both counties, there are alternatives. In Schuyler County, there's already thriving businesses bringing both jobs and tax revenue to the area. That's the wine and tourism and agricultural industries. These are in jeopardy if Crestwood is allowed to expand. In Chemung County, there are alternatives to dumping solid waste into a landfill, as I said last time.
You have 1 minute left.
I didn't know then about the Finger Lakes Zero Waste Coalition, whose goal is to redesign products and production systems to minimize waste, as well as the conservation, recovery and reuse of materials. I didn't know that for every job required to operate a landfill or municipal waste composter, 10 jobs can be created to process recyclable materials, and up to 300 jobs in the remanufacturing industries. These are not zero waste talking, that is from the Department of Environmental Conservation. In Schuyler County, the Legislature voted 5-3 to ignore the voices and concerns of 200 businesses and hundreds of concerned individuals, and to endorse a seriously flawed business proposal that puts the entire ecosystem around Seneca Lake at risk. The impact of the Chemung County landfill is not as far-reaching, but the principle remains the same. Who is more important to this legislature? An out-of-state corporation with questionable ethics, or the residents of Chemung County who are being put in harm's way, who will be saddled with paying for an unnecessarily large facility, whose main reason, therefore, seems to be to bring radioactive material into the county? We, the people, have spoken, and we will not be ignored. At least not this one.
My name is Frank Potter. I'm at Big Flats. And I'm sort of, thought maybe I'd try to read over the situation, to take it back in time. Interesting times in the 1950s. For some people, if you remember, in the early 1950s, we did above-ground bomb testing of radioactive materials. And then early in 1950, international treaties, because of the radiation being spread around the world, moved it to underground testing. Much of this took place in Utah. In 1956, a film crew of 220 individuals in the summer, about 160 miles south of St. George, Utah, made a movie involving chariots, horses, etc., riding around in the dust in an area that had, of course, some years ago been polluted with radioactive material. Key thing to understand is that at that time, Howard Hughes was the director of the film. The federal government, the government officials, assured him there was no hazard and no risk to public health. Okay. The movie was made by 1981. 91 cases of cancer amongst those 220 individuals had shown up. 46 of them at that time had died. Now, I'm not going to take time to mention more than just one individual, because he was the lead actor, John Wayne, of course with lung cancer, passed away. Rita Hayward, Agnes Moran, could go on and on. Two of John Wayne's sons, one of them came down with cancer. They were there on the movie set in the summertime. So, think back on past times of radiation. Now, the other thing I'd like to say is that as a retired biology professor, with 29 years of teaching human genetics, there are 4 points I want to make about radiation exposure in terms of damage to the genetics and cancer. Number 1 is that there is no safe level of radiation exposure. The thresholds that they quote are statistical 50%. 50% threshold for radiation sickness. 50% don't show anything, 50% do. So thresholds are about 50%. H exposure that we have is additive to any background radiation you get. It's being added on. You can't look at just, oh, we're only getting a little bit from this source. It's all the sources added on. The other very important thing is that it's been shown that low level of chronic exposure to radiation is equal to, or sometimes having a greater effect on individuals than one large chronic exposure. And the most important thing is, the movie set was in 1956. Statistics on the deaths, 1981. One of the biggest problems we deal with, that is time has to be measured in decades to see the consequences to the genetic system. It doesn't show up right away. We can't say, okay, 20 days, anything after 20 days, we don't count as being caused by radiation. That was the figure used when 3 Mile Island occurred by the industry. 21 days? That couldn't be. No, it's decades.
You have 1 minute left.
So, okay, just on the last thing then, point out that I ask you to consider, is it worth a decision now? Think about what might be happening to our children or grandchildren decades from now. That's very careful thinking about that.
Line up. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak? If so, make your way down to the chairs.
Can I speak for 1 minute more? There was something I totally forgot.
One time. Go ahead, ma'am.
My name is Mary Thor, and I'm a resident of Manhattan for 24 years. And the last element took us back to the 1950s, so I'd like to do that for a minute too, because I grew up in the 50s in Los Angeles County, where the air was so polluted that it hurt to breathe and your eyes would water. And we weren't allowed to play at recess because of the air quality. So growing up, I knew that there had to be someplace better to live than that. Unfortunately, California has been cleaned up since then because of the Clean Air and Water Acts. But when I settled here, it was like heaven on earth. And I just have a feeling that some people who may have lived here all their lives may take it for granted. Because you've always known it and you don't know anything else. And I just want to say I do not take it for granted. And I don't want to see it disappear. So that was my little sermon. I was a scientist in my career, and I worked with radioactivity in the lab. But there's always something to learn about it, and I haven't come to all these meetings, and I don't know if you've heard this all before, but I got a clue about something when I was listening to an NPR PBS program about landfills, and they mentioned that lead detectors are used. And so I went to the Ludlam site. I don't know if you've seen all this. The type of detectors that are used in landfills where a truck can drive through, something called a plastic scintillator. And they're sensitive to gamma and beta radiation. So I looked up the decay products of uranium. These are some of the, well, I guess all of the decay products. Some of them last only for a few seconds, some a few minutes, some a few days. Radium's the one we hear about because it sticks around for 1,600 years. That's its half-life. That's when half of it is decayed. And of course, radon, which comes from this also. But that stuff is buried deep in the ground. And we get it in our basements because it percolates slowly up through the cracks, and we know those cracks are there. Now you're going to have it sitting on the surface of a landfill, giving off radon, and these particles blowing in the air. So what I can say was, the decay products of all these species, this whole list, are alpha and beta particles. And the Ludlam detector detects mostly gamma. So you have to ask, are we using the right tools to measure? Are we asking the right questions? Are we testing for the right things? So I hope that you folks will ask the right questions and find the right answers to make your decision.
Is there anybody else in the room that has not spoken that wishes to speak? If not, we will declare this section closed, and we will now take a 5-minute break.